Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Thursday. You know what that means, folks. Our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, will be joining us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline in just a second. Today's second part of the show, we're going to crank back up the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup, bring on Mike Ridaught, who does a tremendous job with the PrepZone.com with baseball and softball high school playoffs in full force. But first, Gator baseball cranks up tonight, a big series at Kentucky. We need a sweep there to stay hot. So first pitch is at 7 p.m. this evening. So let's go to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by our good friend Brent. Follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you, my man?
Shane, doing well. Great to be with you as always. The Gators had a big series win over Vanderbilt last weekend, and you mentioned Mike Ridaught. As you know, Mike is definitely one of the best in the business, maybe one of the busiest play-by-play guys I've ever seen, but he'll always do a good job for us.
Yeah, he does a tremendous job covering high school sports. Brent, let's talk a little draft. I want to get your thoughts. You're over in Jacksonville, obviously. I know the city of Jacksonville is extremely excited. What did you think about the Jaguars draft before we get into college football?
I mean, they did a good job with it. Shane, as you know, you get 10 draftees, and how many of them actually are able to help you? So if they can get, obviously, Trevor Lawrence was their main target, but I thought Travis Etienne will also add some explosiveness for them. They have so many needs that there's no way that they're going to be able to fill them with one draft. It's going to take multiple drafts for that to be able to happen. I thought Dylan Moses, them picking him up, he'll be a good football player if they'll allow him just to get well, and I think that's what they'll do. So I think most folks will realize that they did a good job, but people also need to realize, Shane, and you played in the best league there is, and that's what it is. You don't do anything there overnight. It just takes a long time to rebuild, and as many bad drafts as they've had in the past, it's going to take several more for them to get where they want to be.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point with Dylan Moses out of Alabama. You know, highly recruited, had a really good career there, but was banged up, some serious injuries. But, in the NFL, there's no time limit.
Right.
In college, you got your 3 or 4 years to play. Watching him on tape, he's obviously a very good player. They can put him on those PUP list, practice squad. There's all kinds of ways they can just put him on the sideline where he doesn't play, maybe not even practice, but like you said, get him well because he's got a lot of talent, and eventually he could become a really good NFL player.
He's a smart player. He was basically the play caller on defense. Now, he tore his meniscus about mid-season and basically never said anything about it until the end of the year. So he looked like he was a step slow the whole season, and that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, before we jump into the SEC, Brent, which we love to talk about, I sent you a little thing I saw this morning when I woke up. I don't know if it was in my email or on Twitter or what, but, the ESPN post-spring power rankings, whatever the hell that means, came out, and the Alabama Crimson Tide is no longer your number one team in the power rankings. It's Oklahoma. And,
I think, yes.
Yeah, they got Spencer Rattler at quarterback. We all know about him, but gosh, I kept reading. I didn't realize they're just destroying people in the transfer portal. Tons of kids, tons of really good players are now going to play for the Sooners.
And for what you and I talk about, a lot of that comes from Tennessee. They got three players from Tennessee: Eric Gray, the running back, who really is a good running back, one of their better tackles, and Wanya Morris, and the defensive back Key Lawrence. So I mean, those guys may start. And Shane, we talked about this last week. Mike Woods from Arkansas also transferred over there. And listen, Mike Woods caught a touchdown in the Arkansas spring game, and basically the Monday after the spring game, he transferred. So
wow.
That tells you how this thing can go. They also got a Penn State quarterback, Micah Bowens, because they had a couple of transfers that went elsewhere. One being Chandler Morris, the son of the former Arkansas head coach. So you're right about that. And listen, people are saying, as good as Spencer Rattler is, which is one of the all-time great college football names, this kid Caleb Williams was 10 of 11 for 100 yards in the spring game. He may eventually be better.
Yeah, John says on Facebook Live, OU is loaded. Eric Gray's a wonderful situation at OU. But yeah, I saw this article, and 4 of the players that are transferring to OU are all from the SEC. And gosh, I didn't even, OU, we know they're always up in the top 5, 6, whatever, but I didn't even think about them having Spencer Rattler come back. They got a ton of guys coming back. They add these really good SEC players. So maybe they are the team to beat this year. We shall see. Brent, Alabama, they actually have a bunch of guys transferring out of there, right?
Yeah, they've got, and you're gonna have this going on for this time of year too. And yes, they've also had their share to do the same, basically. But I think that's probably more minimal than it would be at this point too. I mean, they're still very excited about who they've got. I think the biggest thing for Alabama, they're still waiting on Harry To'oTo'o, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The Tennessee linebacker. If people have not heard, I think the biggest transfer thing for Bama has been Jamison Williams, who's coming over from Ohio State. Now, look, is he going to start? We don't know, but you don't have a guy like that who transfers in, they're just not going to start. I mean, John Mechie is back. He's probably going to be their number one receiver. Javon Baker is coming through. And they had several kids during the spring game that really were quite impressive, too. So, yes, Bama's had their share of guys, probably less guys going out, and they've been very picky about their transfers.
Yeah, but they're getting some as well. LSU, after spring is over, it's basically a two-man quarterback race between Max Johnson and Miles Brennan. TJ Finley, who got a little playing time last year, has entered the transfer portal. I'm anxious to see if anybody picks him up because Brent, after watching him play, and he looks like he's got a lot of ability, he's got all the tools, but it looks like he's one of those guys that shines at the Under Armour combines or the Nike Elite 11, when nothing that has anything to do with football, throwing on air, he looks great. But when the bullets start flying, he can't play real well. Who do you think wins that quarterback job?
That's a great question. They have been pretty consistent in saying that Miles Brennan is not losing that job because he got injured. But as we know, Max Johnson came in, particularly against Florida, and really played well. The TJ Finley thing is going to be interesting. Now, the point you made is a good one because he was up and down. I mean, against South Carolina, he was 17 of 21, and then against Texas A&M, he was 9 of 25. And then against Alabama, he was 14 of 28. Now, what's in his favor is his people can make the argument, look, he struggled at times, but he has SEC experience against SEC defenses. So, Shane, I wonder down the line in transferring, will some of that help him?
Well, it might, but, it goes back to my whole thing about, when we read these magazines that are going to be coming out here pretty soon, and you go get them at Publix, Athlon's and Lindy's, and you open it, or the Phil Steele that, this team has 19 returning starters. Well, that didn't mean those damn returning starters are very good.
That's right.
I think it was Tennessee several years ago. They had like 20 starters back, and they won like 2 games.
Yes.
But it's the same way with TJ Finley. Yeah, he's got a little bit of SEC experience, but he didn't play real good in any of those experiences. So who knows? And John says Finley's another Jamarcus Russell. He might, but Jamarcus actually had a pretty good college career. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Let's talk Tennessee for a second. The more I think about Tennessee, and I know they kind of they had the stats in their spring game were ridiculous. It was all set. It was all set for the offense to do well. But I really think Josh Heupel's going to turn that program around. I like what he's doing.
Well, look, I agree with that. Now, it won't happen overnight, but I think what's going to happen to them is, in this day and age, if you're not very good, at least be exciting. And I think what they're going to do is Heupel can put together an offense. Now, we saw that in the spring game where they basically threw for 1,000 yards is what it amounted to. Now, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. They've got about 5 different ones that they can choose from. The Hooker kid from Virginia Tech, obviously being one of them. The Marr kid who played against Florida in the Swamp a couple of years ago. Harrison Bailey is another one. Now, Tennessee has had some interesting things that have happened in the transfer portal, too. They've got the former Mississippi State wide receiver Javonte Payton, who's originally from Tennessee, signed with Ole Miss out of high school, then went to a junior college. Need a roster just to find out what all that he did. But the biggest get they got was former Texas linebacker Juwan Mitchell. He announced on Monday that he was transferring, started 8 of 10 games for Texas last year, and led the team in tackles. So he'll be eligible. But see, those are guys that Tennessee needs, that someone who can come in and make an impact. But Shane, in the notes we share, I'm sure you probably saw what Amari Rogers of Clemson said, that a lot of people thought he was going to Tennessee. Instead, he went to Clemson. His quote was, "Because I wanted to win." So, Look, that is the perception that Tennessee's got to overcome.
Yeah, and speaking of that, a lot of people may not know who Amari Rogers is, but his dad was T. Martin, who played quarterback.
That's right.
At Tennessee, won a national championship. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. Major lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with our good friend, our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, on the Titan MR hotline. If you got a text or a question for Brent, shoot them to us. Sandy says on Facebook Live, Brent really knows his stats. Yes, he does. Brent, I want to get your thoughts on, and I can't remember who I had on earlier this week. We talked about, Jamie Newman doesn't get drafted. You got to just think the people, his handlers or his camp, however you want to phrase it, gave him some bad advice.
Listen, it was by far the most egregious decision I think that was done. He would have done much better off, frankly, if he stayed at Wake Forest. Now, he came out of Georgia, and frankly, the Georgia beat writers would tell you that he just got afraid of the competition and then decided that he would just take the time off and not play. Now, one thing I've learned from you over the years that you've told me, which is really important, you've got to have tape. And the thing we mean by that is Newman didn't play this year, so no one saw him play. And you know how people want immediate, that they want the immediate results that you've got. He had nothing to give them in going against defenses. So it was one of the worst decisions that we've seen in a long time. I mean, he would have been much better off to have stayed at Georgia because, frankly, you remember until J.T. Daniels got started about basically in November. Newman, who knows, Shane, he could have played a little bit, but when people can't see you play, that's a real detriment. It hurt him badly, didn't it?
There's no question, and I'm not even aware of who did he sign as a undrafted free agent with anyone. Are you aware of that?
I have not heard that he did. So
and
no.
the comment that you made that you heard from some of the beat writers up at Georgia that he was afraid of competition. Well, let me tell you, my man, there's competition on a daily basis at the National Football League level. So maybe that's why if scouts heard that may have hurt him, and that may be why he hasn't signed as an undrafted free agent. He may have, we just don't know. But I just think that's very, very interesting. Okay, Brent, in the notes that you shared with me, a thing that just was staggering to me was the draft of the players from Auburn University. Unbelievable.
This is coming from Brian Matthews, who's an Auburn beat writer. But in essence, the Auburn did not have a first-round selection for the sixth time in 7 years. 144 players were signed under Gus Malzahn from 2013 to 2018 and have been eligible for the draft. Two were drafted in the first round. That tells you not only about the people that they drafted. And look, that doesn't mean they were horrible football players. It just means they weren't first rounders. But the other thing it tells you is that they did not do a real good job at all of evaluating players and, most importantly, developing players. Now, also in this article, there were about three guys that Auburn had a real chance at. Kadarius Toney from Mobile, we obviously know where he went. Jonah Williams visited Auburn. His mother was an ex-Auburn graduate, ended up in Alabama, started 44 games. And then one of the most amazing things that I've read in a while, they chose Tyler Queen at quarterback in 2015 instead of Lamar Jackson, who won the Heisman and the starting quarterback with the Ravens. So I think the thing here is that it tells you something about Gus Malzahn. And I know a lot of people think he's going to UCF and going to take over the world. Look, if he doesn't, all you've got to do is look at his track record at Auburn. And look, this is in black and white in an article from an Auburn beat writer. Shane, did that affect you like it did me when you saw the raw numbers?
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about Ole Miss or one of those type schools. We're talking about a yearly, great program in the Southeastern Conference that's put a ton of dudes in the league. I was just blown away at that stat. Brent, we got a text here on the Titan of our text line. It's from William. He's basically telling us that Jamie Newman signed with the Eagles.
Okay. So thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Brian Johnson that left Florida is the Eagles quarterback coach. So we'll see how that turns out. Any other stuff happening within the league?
Let me mention something that, and I give Mike Farrell of Rivals.com credit for this. He puts out a weekly update about this. Henry To'oTo'o, and I know I'm probably mispronouncing that, but we're going with it, is probably the best linebacker to some degree in the league. He's with Tennessee. He's transferring from Tennessee. We don't know where he's going, but in Mike Farrell's comment, he's mentioned he thought he was going to Ohio State. That hasn't happened. There's been some thought that he was going to Alabama, and they're waiting. Now, in this article that he talked about this week, he's also said, and this is interesting, that he could be in the mix for Florida. Now, again, this is just rumor stuff, and Farrell basically says this, but it leads to another point that we really need to make is we don't know yet what the SEC is going to do as far as the intra-conference. Now, what we mean by that is they're supposed to vote, the president's supposed to vote at the end of May or in June about what to do about intra, not inter, that's between conferences, intras within the conference. Transfers, do they sit out a full season before becoming eligible? Now, you wouldn't think they would do that because the SEC does not want a recruiting disadvantage with this. But the thing that Farrell writes about here is, he says, another source told me that the SEC wants to set the bar for intra-conference transfers and make it nearly impossible for the conference to get involved in this madhouse of a portal. And what they could do is make their own rule within the conference that you would, yes, actually have to sit out a year before you could play. Now look, would they do that? I don't know. But the conference presidents, and Shane, listen, the conference presidents make these decisions. And sometimes they make decisions that you and I would never make. But they make it because they think they're doing it for the good of the game. I'm not saying they will. All I'm saying is we need to pay really close attention to this when this vote comes, because that would affect and frankly slow things down. I kind of wonder if that might not be a good thing, but that commentary aside, that's going to be a very important decision for the SEC.
Yeah, Joseph says here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. If they make them sit out, it's going to help other conferences get our elite talent, meaning, if they have to sit out a year. But if they passed the rule now where you get one free transfer, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but within the conference, the SEC is trying to not allow players to go from Florida to Georgia, right?
Correct. Now, to Joseph's point, and his point's a good one, but there's in Mike Farrell's article that there was also some talk about the SEC feels good enough about their recruiting that even though that would be a risk for them, that they still may go ahead and do it. But again, the thing we've got to remember is the people who make these decisions, and they're the conference presidents, Shane, they just think differently than you and I. That's a thing we can never forget in these decisions.
Correct. Are y'all tired of living with chronic joint pain? There are new breakthrough treatments at QC Kinetics here in North Central Florida. Not only alleviate your pain, they speed up the healing process. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. Speaking with Brent Beaird, got a few more minutes with Brent here on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Okay, Brent, there's a lot of talk now about expansion in the college football playoffs. You think they're going to, I think it's definitely going to happen. My question is, when will it happen and how many teams you think they go to?
Well, again, it's going to happen. We won't actually see it on the field until about 2025 or 2026, but I think they will make some kind of decision probably within the next 12 months or 18 months, because frankly, they've got to be able to do it just to be in line with there's so many layers for these TV contracts, bowl contracts, and so forth. But the bottom line is there's been all kinds of speculation over the last few days since the articles came out about about the commissioners meeting and saying they looked over like 63 different options. There was a big article in the Atlantic about they may go to as many as 12, but I still think they probably are going to either 6 or 8. Listen, college football decisions, it's like moving a glacier. It takes years to do, and I think they go smaller instead of larger. I mean, I'd be fine with 12, but the reality is I think that's what's going to happen is a smaller increase. This week, Greg Sankey was interviewed. He was at the Regions Golf Tournament at Birmingham, which is a big deal. That they've got a lot of the coaches there. So Sankey said for his work, but he's open at looking beyond that. And again, this is topic for another day. But what I've never understood with Sankey is if the conference expands, Shane, we're not only going to have one likely SEC team. My goodness, there may be two or three at some point. So I don't know why Sankey fights that so much sometimes, but at the same time, that is his attitude. But I think the other commissioners will move him toward whatever number they do. So I'm going to say a decision within a year, 18 months, and it will go probably, I think, at least to 8. Could be limited to 6, but I'm going to say 6 or 8.
Yep. Dan's got a question here for you, Brent. He said that have you heard anything about Florida and Georgia moving away from Jacksonville? Kirby Smart was on the Feinbaum show talking about moving the game. I mean, it seems like he talks about that every year.
Listen, this time of year when beat writers have nothing to write about, they always do an article on that, particularly the Georgia guys. But no, from what I understand, there's pretty much the contract's done with Jacksonville, and it's going to be here for the foreseeable future. I know the city wants it. Personally, living here, I hope it stays here forever. Look, I understand that the arguments for going home and home, but no, that there's nothing's going to happen anytime soon. I think it's certainly here, Shane, for at least the next 4 or 5 years, and likely more.
Brent, got any nuggets for us?
There are always a lot of nuggets that are going on. Arkansas. They had one player. Matter of fact, every team in the SEC had at least one player drafted. Jonathan Marshall is first player off the board. They also got a defensive end from Missouri, Trey Williams, 6'5", 260. I still think this Arkansas team may be really they're not going to the West, but I think they'll be improved. Auburn's had several transfers. Jay Hardy, Jaron Handy. They had quarterback reserve, Terrell Garnett. They're in the transfer portal. Chris Thompson entered the transfer portal too. Now, Chris Thompson, the Auburn defensive back, was recruited by new Gators defensive backs coach Wesley McGriff when he was at Auburn. Not saying that's going to happen, but just kind of keep that in mind because it could somewhere down the line too. Georgia had a record number of players, and 9 that got drafted too. Major Burns, 4-star player from Baton Rouge, is entering the transfer portal. Not saying he's going to LSU, but just keep that in mind. And also real quick for Georgia, Brian Kemp, the governor, is going to be signing a college athletic NIL bill today at the University of Georgia. It takes effect July 1, 2021. So we will see more of these signings by governors over the next few months.
Yeah. Brent, I want you to hear the This Day in Sports brought to you by Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise from now till May 31st. Get a preventative maintenance plan for $169 and save almost 40% off the normal cost. Any maintenance scheduled between now and May 31st, you'll be entered to win a Nest thermostat with installation. So back in 1954, Brent, there's English athlete Roger Bannister becomes the first to run a sub 4-minute mile at 3:59. Is that about what you run your mile in?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I was there to cover it at that point. That's a great story, and I may have my guys mixed up. And forgive me if I do, but people can Google this. I'll make this quick. Roger Bannister, I understand, as a child, had some kind of horrible accident in his school. I mean, back in the 50s, you can imagine they had like. Not the schools they do today, but these schools were basically just made out of wood, and they were almost cabins to some degree. And he was taking wood in for the fire, and there was some kind of accident, and he was burned real badly. And he overcame that. They thought he'd never walk, but he ended up breaking the record for the mile. So Bannister's story is a great one, to say the least.
Yep, no doubt. Well, Brent, good stuff as always. We will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend, my man.
Good. Can't wait, buddy. Take care.
Yep, that's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. And again, you can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Going to take our first time out of the program. We come back. We're going to talk a little high school sports, a little junior college baseball with our good friend Mike Ridaught on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate, with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Palmetto Moon, Skechers, and coming summer of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors, Tailgate, and Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. I want to thank our man Brent Beaird for joining us on the Titan MR hotline. Now we're going to go to the Titan MR hotline. We're going to be joined by Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com. Also writes for the Main Street DailyNews.com. Good morning, Mike. How are you, my man?
Just a little tired, Shane. We had a long day at the ballpark yesterday at Joker Marchant Stadium. Our first game of the day, just to put things in perspective, was between Florida Southwestern State College and Indian River. The first 3 innings of game one took 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete. So needless to say, it was a domino effect. And get this. So it's after midnight, and our final game of the day goes into extra innings. So, yeah, just a long day yesterday. Pensacola State beat Seminole State 4-3 in 10 innings last night. It was the first trip since 2013 for Seminole State. So, yeah, some good baseball, good and bad baseball. Obviously, that first game, a lot of hit batsmen. I don't understand why these JUCO guys have trouble hitting guys. I don't see as nearly the hit batsmen that I do at the high school level that I do at the JUCO level for whatever reason. But all in all, pretty good day yesterday, except for Santa Fe College, which got upset yesterday.
Oh, wow. So does that mean they're done? How's it work out? Is it double elimination?
It's a double elimination tournament. They got beat by Northwest Florida State 11-3. It was just a 1-0 game going into the fourth. We kind of had a little bit of a pitcher's duel, which really is Santa Fe College's forte, right? I mean, Johnny Wiggs, former Gator pitcher, kind of prides himself on pitching. And kudos to Santa Fe College, first of all, for getting to the tournament. They've won 4 of the last 5 Mid-Florida Conference titles. Obviously, no tournament last year due to COVID-19, but this is their 11th Mid-Florida Conference championship under Johnny Wiggs, 15 seasons. He's done a tremendous job of getting this team to the state tournament, the 6th consecutive year that they've made it to the state tournament, but it just wasn't their day yesterday, and Santa Fe will drop in the losers bracket. In fact, they're going to play here in about an hour and a half against Indian River State College, which lost that first game to Florida Southwestern State College. So it's tough to battle back through the losers bracket. As you know, this tournament is a grind. It will run until Sunday, so they're going to have to figure out a way to get hot. And that's something that they did during the season. I mean, they started out the regular season 7-7, and then all of a sudden they went on a long winning streak and were able to piece it together and win the Mid-Florida Conference tournament. But, to fight their way through the losers bracket, it will certainly be tough. If they are fortunate enough to win this morning at 10, they will play Friday afternoon at 4, and then we'll see what happens, with regards to Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So, Mike, you basically broadcast games all day yesterday. So what time did you start and what time were you done?
Actually, Marty Paulman did the broadcast yesterday.
Okay.
I actually have to leave. I won't be able to stay for the game. I am also I'm the webcasting coordinator for the FCSAA state tournament. So I actually was on my feet the whole time. I ran camera for all 4 games yesterday.
Ooh.
So I didn't even get a chance to sit down. Yeah, it was a brutal day, long day. But then I'll leave this morning for the state tournament. And by the way, congratulations to the Santa Fe College softball team. They are going to be in the state tournament, which starts tomorrow, and I will be broadcasting those. So I'll have 13 games over a 3.5-day period, I guess, coming up over in Longwood.
Wow. We got a quick Facebook Live here. Speaking of junior college, John wants to know, how is Chipola looking this year? Are they in the tournament?
Interesting thing about Chipola, and I didn't really get the whole story, and I kind of equate this to what happened to Tallahassee Community College. Shane, the basketball team. Tallahassee Community College only had 3 losses. They were nationally ranked, but in their regular season finale, they had an altercation with Pensacola State College by the team bus. I mean, they were getting ready to leave. Pensacola State kind of instigated the thing, and the NJCAA caught wind of it, and they gave them a 2-game suspension. Well, because it was the last game of the regular season, that meant that they were excluded from postseason play. So they were nationally ranked, about to get ready for the state tournament, and then that happened to them. I heard the same thing kind of happened with Chipola College, that they got in an altercation, and they have been banned from postseason as well. But they were ranked 18th in the country, and they should have been participating in this state tournament. So it's just unfortunate. Got to be able to kind of, temper's flare, I know, so you got to watch your cool. But, yeah, unfortunate what happened with Chipola, because I felt like that's a team that, always does well. Traditionally, they're always really good, but they're not here.
Interesting. We're speaking with Mike Ridaught on the Titan More hotline. We're going to talking a little bit on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. I'm going to switch over to high school. So let's start with softball. A couple of local teams are still in the mix, the Trenton Tigers and the Dixie County Bears.
Here's the interesting story about Trenton and Dixie County, Shane. Okay, so coming into the year, the Trenton Tigers had won 39 games in a row. They went 37 games in a row. They went 27-0 and won the 2019 state championship. They were 10-0 and nationally ranked when COVID shut things down. And I think they won 10 in a row to start this season. I believe they had won 47 games in a row. Their only loss came to a team outside their classification that's ranked in the top 5 in their classification. Their only loss this season. They beat Dixie County head-to-head. Dixie County only had 1 loss this season. However, despite the fact that Trenton has been number 1 in the state all season long in the Miracle Sports State Softball Poll, they were the number 2 seed in their district. I don't know, that's definitely a head scratcher, but it's based on the Max Prep's strength of schedule, and it was deemed that Dixie County had the tougher schedule. Now, in my opinion, maybe one thing that contributed to that is the fact that Dixie County played 4 more games, but again, Trenton beat Dixie County head-to-head during the regular season in the only game that they played. So they go into the district tournament, Shane. Trenton is the number 2 seed in that district, Class 1A District 7, and Trenton beats Dixie County in the district championship game 4-2. So Dixie County's got 2 losses. They're on the road for the playoffs, while Trenton was at home. Trenton moved their game up to last night. They scored 21 runs in the first inning against Hawthorne. And yeah, in the first inning, Hawthorne, first ever fast pitch state softball playoff game. So congratulations to the Hornets. They only lost a couple of games this year, but Trenton gets the win. So now they await the winner of today's Dixie County Williston game in the region final. So both those teams are number 1 and number 2 in the state. Trenton, it was funny, Shane, because in the district semifinals, Trenton got the win, and then all of a sudden, their strength of schedule was better than Dixie County, but it didn't matter because they were already seeded. And then Trenton moved back into the number 1 spot, number 1 in the state. So Trenton, if we get a Trenton-Dixie County matchup in the region final, it will be the number 1 and number 2 teams in the state. But unfortunately, it's for the right to go to the Final Four. So it's just a shame that one of those 2 teams will not make it to the state play or to the state Final Four. Brantford is playing Hilliard in a district regional semifinal rather today. The winner of that will play either Union County or Taylor County. So Union County has a chance to get to the Final Four as well. And if they did, they would hook up with either Trenton, Dixie County, or Williston in the state semifinals. But yeah, just very strange, how Trenton only 1 loss since the 2018 season, but yet they were the number 2 seed in the district.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. So basically, the winner of the Trenton-Dixie County is probably going to win the state title. I bet the travel baseball team, I bet most of those girls from both of those teams play on the same travel team, I bet, is my guess.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, and have known each other, grown up together, et cetera. But it doesn't matter now that they're on opposite sides. It's going to be a war on May the 11th, Tuesday, May the 11th.
At Chris Storing Mortgage, they do mortgage.
Go ahead, Shane.
At Chris Storing Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Storing Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. Speaking with Mike Ridaught. What'd you have there, Mike?
I was just going to say that Trenton's got 4 Division I signees, including Darian Ingram. She's got a 0.45 ERA, I believe, heading into yesterday. And, of course, I think she probably threw yesterday. So, she's going to be the key if Trenton wants to get back to the Final Four.
All right, let's talk a little baseball. Santa Fe and Union County, both are still alive.
They are. Let's start with Union County. They were the number 1 team in the state, according to Max Preps, but they got upset in their district championship game. They lost to Hamilton County 6-2. That was the first district title in 19 years for Hamilton County. So now the number 1 team in the state has to go on the road. Union County has to make the long trip over to Liberty County. If they win that game, they would probably have to go to Hamilton County, who they lost to in the district championship game. Hamilton County will be at home against Bluntstown. Newberry's having a great season. Only 1 loss this year for the Panthers. They'll be at home against Crescent City. Williston will be on the road at Fort Meade. So those are some of the teams that could get to the state semifinals. But, of course, they'd have to go head-to-head in the region final, or at least Union County would have to go head-to-head likely with Hamilton County. Newberry will probably end up playing Fort Meade for the right to go to the Final Four. But you mentioned Santa Fe. Here's another great story for you, Shane. The Santa Fe baseball team, first of all, they had their best winning percentage in school history this year. They only lost 2 games all year long. They are in such a tough district, though. So, the fact that they were able to do that in such a tough district makes it an even more special story, because in 4A District 2, Shane, Green Cove Springs Clay was the number 1 team in the state. Santa Fe was the number 2 team in the state, and Live Oak Suwannee was the number 3 team in the state. They're all in the same district. So we knew going into the playoffs that, unfortunately, either the number 2 or 3 team in the state were not going to make it, because Santa Fe and Suwannee played in the district semifinals. Santa Fe shut out Suwannee 2-0. They've beaten Suwannee all 3 times that they've played this year. So Suwannee, I think 6 losses all year, but 3 of them were to Santa Fe. However, no one expected Baker County to go on the road and upset the number 1 team in the state, Clay, 3-1 in the district semifinals. So Santa Fe ended up playing Baker County for the district title last week. Santa Fe won that game 6-3. So Santa Fe will be at home today in the Class 4A state playoffs. So they are currently the highest ranked team in the state in Class 4A. Now, we'll see if that will equate to a state championship, but at least Santa Fe by virtue of winning the district championship at home tonight against Panama City Arnold. If they win that, they would get either Baker County or Wakulla in the regional semifinals. And then if you're looking at a regional final, you could be talking about a team like North Marion or Bishop Kenny out of Jacksonville to get to the Final Four. So it'll be tough, but, I certainly think they've got a chance. They've had such a great year this year.
We got a Facebook Live brought to you by Melton Law here. I'm not quite maybe you understand the question. It comes from Johnny. He says, why are the districts so different in baseball and softball?
Good question. And as you know, Shane, we could have these arguments all the time about classifications and so forth, because case in point, the Gainesville softball team competes in 5A, and I believe the baseball team competes in 6A. I don't get it, especially since there's the same number of classifications in softball for softball and baseball. That's certainly a head scratcher. I don't necessarily have an answer for that.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. Mike, tell everybody what the Main Street Daily News is all about. Okay.
MainStreetDailyNews.com is a website that actually launched back in March. So they're still in their infancy, only been around for a year. I was hired in December, and most of what I write is high school or local sports. I don't even write much about the Gators. Obviously, there's plenty of outlets that cover the Gators. So if you want some good high school sports information, go to MainStreetDailyNews.com. Another story that I wrote too, Shane, I don't know if you heard this or not, but Kelly Beckham of Gainesville High School just retired from coaching after 39 years. He decided to give it up, just 2 wins shy of 800. Kelly, can't you come back, coach a couple of games, and then retire? But, just 2 wins shy of 800 wins. Started out at Bronson. He led Bronson to the Class A state championship games in 1989 and 2002, and actually led Gainesville to the 2009 state championship. That team went 29-3 to win the state championship. Got the Purple Hurricanes to the state semifinals in 2013. Also in 2015, they finished 29-3 state runners-up that year. 268 wins, 108 defeats at Gainesville High School. He had 8 seasons of 21 or more wins. So unbelievable career for Kelly Beckham. That's one of the stories that I wrote this past week. I wrote a preview about Santa Fe College baseball in the state tournament. Also, I'm recapping the high school baseball and softball state tournaments that are currently going on. So if you want a lot of more local sports, like your high school type stuff, then go to MainStreetDailyNews.com, because we're always putting stuff up there.
Well, I'm going back to John's question. He replied here, it's not the classification. For example, Madison County, Taylor County, Liberty County are all in one district for baseball. But in softball, It's Liberty, Weewa, Franklin, and Bozeman. I don't know if that helps you understand. He says just completely different teams. They're talking about the same school, but different teams. So it's the FHSA. I don't quite understand it as well. Before we let you go, Mike, we got a text here on the Titan our text line. It comes from Greg. Greg wants to know, are there any softball or baseball teams in the North Central Florida area that surprised you and didn't advance?
Well, baseball, obviously, Clay. They were the number one team in the state. So anytime the number one team in the state doesn't make it to the state playoffs, it's a big deal. I thought that they would have at least beaten Baker County in the district semifinals. And, who knows if they would have beaten Santa Fe. Santa Fe and Clay played earlier this year, Shane. The game went 14 innings, and Clay won that game in 14 innings at Santa Fe. So I really felt like Clay would have gotten there. As far as softball, that's a good question. I haven't even really looked to see the teams that didn't get there. Obviously, Union County baseball, I was kind of surprised they got beaten in the district championship game, but at least as a district runner-up, they did get into the postseason. But I'd have to look into that for softball. I'm not quite sure about softball, but that would be my answer for baseball for sure, with Clay going down and not making the state playoffs as the number one team in the state.
All right. Good stuff as always, Mike. Get some rest, my man. Enjoy covering the junior college games, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Sounds good, Shane. Have a great day. Thanks for the time.
Yep, that's Mike Ridaught. Does a tremendous job on the prepzone.com. ridaught.com. We're going to take our final time out of the program today. When we come back, we'll wrap up this Thursday edition. You're watching and listening to Pod.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Avera and Smith, Dowling Signs, Chomp Harder Apparel, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Looking for all type of restaurant people, managers, servers, bartenders, hosts, cooks, dishwashers, bussers. If you think you're good in the restaurant business, then give us a call.
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill job fair is open now through May 15th. All you have to do is go to spurriersdraft.com and fill out an application.
We're looking for the good team members, and we're looking for people with a wonderful attitude that can make Spurrier's Gridiron Grill the best we can possibly be. To apply, go to spurriersdraft.com.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security Systems Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Center State Bank, folks, is becoming South State Bank, but we still put business first. We understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. South State will still have 4 convenient Alachua County locations. South State Bank, banking forward, member FDIC. I want to thank our man, Brent Beaird, our college football analyst, breaking down what's going on in college football right now, joining the program on the Titan Moore Hotline, and also Mike Ridaught from the prepzone.com, breaking down some of the playoff scenarios in high school sports on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Tomorrow's program, we're going to have JC, obviously, but we're going to have the new head football coach of the Western Carolina Catamounts. My good buddy Kerwin Bell will be joining us live. Talking to him about taking over a program that hasn't had much success, but he's extremely, extremely excited, and look forward to talking to him as well. Also, don't forget that you can follow us and like us on Facebook and YouTube. You can also listen to us on 30 other digital platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many, many more. Make sure you tell your friends to follow us. The more followers we have, the better, folks. So get to following us. We'll have I'm hoping to have Randy Mueller. We're supposed to have him on today. He lives out in Seattle. He's a NFL former general manager, NFL guru about the draft and those type of things. We're gonna get him on hopefully next week and get his thoughts on the draft. I know we're kind of put the draft to bed, but I still like to get him on, talk about the winners and losers, and obviously what the Gators did. Also, Gator baseball starts tonight, 7 p.m. first pitch against the Kentucky Wildcats. Big series, need to sweep them. Today's show's a wrap, folks, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.